Welcome to Herself, a space for women to have deep conversations about the intersection between spiritual entrepreneurship and fulfilling your potential, so you can become the woman you truly are in every area of your life. After being in business for over 2 decades, I've learned, as you likely have too, that as you grow your business grows you in unexpected, often challenging, yet miraculous ways. Here, we'll talk about how to get out of your own way so you can grow a business that's abundant and sustainable while allowing you to be a force for good in the world. I'll give you simple, actionable strategies as well as wisdom and inspiration to help you root into your wholeness, lead from your values, and work in ways that feel deeply aligned so you can bring your true self into the world through your business and in every area of your life. Hello, beautiful woman, and welcome back. It feels really good to be here with you again after our summer break. And what a season it has been. I do not even know where to begin. I am just returning from my August sabbatical, which extended a bit into July and a bit into September because this year I got married to my beloved. We had a beautiful wedding, and yes, we moved to France and we arrived exactly 1 week ago. So it has been a full experience. We are in an Airbnb now, living out of our suitcases for the indefinite future as we are looking for our new home. And really, we're just soaking up everything we can about the experience of being here in France. So again, there's so much more to say about all this. And if you want more of those kind of personal details about this big life transition, about our wedding, what it's like to relocate internationally, I am sharing more of that in my Sunday journals. And that is my weekly newsletter where I get a bit more personal about the journey. And if you want to receive that, you can subscribe at programs-sarahavonstover.com/journal. Or you can just click the link in the show notes below. So that's programs-sarahavonstover.com/journal. And today I want to explore something that I have been hearing from many of you and something that I have seen reflected in my own journey in the past and the journeys of the women that I have been mentoring in recent months. And it's a common theme across all of these. And this is that feeling that you have outgrown the business or the career that you built. And maybe you're successful on paper, you're hitting your goals, but something feels off. It doesn't feel like it's fulfilling you in the way that it once did. And you sense that you've evolved, and your business or your current career track, if you are in more of a corporate environment, it just has not evolved along with you. So if you have ever felt that tension between who you're becoming and the work you're doing day to day, here we are talking about the signs that you've outgrown your current business model or your current professional expression, whatever that is, and more importantly, what to do about it. So first, as always, I want you to know, if you are feeling this way, you are not alone. And this is one of just the core medicines of women's community is we can live so much in isolation. That is really how our modern culture is set up. But when we come into circle, even if it's just a virtual circle like this, and we don't necessarily know all the other women who are listening, we can hear our truths reflected back. And here you're hearing your truths reflected back through me and saying, well, I've experienced this, and I'm working with a lot of other women who are experiencing this. And that can be really validating. It can just move you out of shame and move you out of feeling like, oh, there's something wrong with me, to actually feeling like you're part of something bigger that may be happening that's bigger than you. So this is a really common experience, this feeling that you've outgrown your business or your professional expression, especially for us spiritually oriented women business owners who are in our 40s and beyond. And this can absolutely happen earlier than that. I'm not saying that it can't and that it doesn't. It does. And it does accelerate also in midlife, in your 40s and 50s and beyond. And the reason for that is that there is just something about this season of life, midlife, whether you're in perimenopause, you're in post-motherhood, you are moving into the empty nest syndrome, or you're just stepping into a deeper level of wisdom and authenticity that is asking you and maybe even getting to the point of demanding you to shed what no longer feels true and to step into a more genuine expression of who you are today and who you are becoming now. And here's what I also want to be super, super clear about. Now, this isn't about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Absolutely not. It's not about burning everything down and starting over from scratch. You do not need to throw away all the work you've done or the success that you've created this far. Think of it more like a snake shedding its skin. That's a very feminine analogy. And here we are in the year of the snake. And I don't know about you, but at the start of this year, the year of the snake is the Chinese, the astrological new year. And at the start of that, which was, I think it was in late January this year, I heard from someone, this is a year of such deep transformation that you will be a different person at the end of this year. You will be in a different place at the end of this year. That is very much true for me, even though according to the Chinese zodiac, we still have almost half of the year left. But this analogy of the snake, it's transformation from within when a snake sheds its skin. And you're not becoming something or someone completely different. You're just becoming more fully yourself, like more stripped down. And the challenge is that many of us, we build our businesses, our careers in our 30s or even our 20s, like I did. And in those years, we're just in a completely different season of life. We had different priorities, we had different energy levels, different ways of being in the world. We didn't know ourselves as well. We didn't have as much self-awareness. And as we evolve, sometimes our businesses just haven't evolved with us and we need to play catch up a bit. So today I want to share with you 7 signs that you have outgrown the business that you've built, or perhaps, as is true for a number of my clients, you've outgrown your corporate job and are ready to start up something of your own. And these 7 signs, they are extrapolated not only from my own journey, but also from working with hundreds of women in similar transitions and from really listening closely and paying attention to what is happening in our wider collective experience right now, which is an experience of deep change. It's like personally, we may be the snakes shedding our skins, and collectively, we are doing this as well. So as I share these, I invite you to listen with your whole body, your whole being. Notice what creates expansion. Notice what creates that little yes of recognition, of resonance, what might feel like a relief, or that sense of finally someone is naming what I have been feeling. All right. So pay attention to your body as you are hearing my words. All right. So let us begin. Here are the 7 signs that you have outgrown the business or the career path that you have built. Sign number 1 is called the success paradox. The success paradox. And this is when you're technically successful. Maybe you're hitting your revenue goals. Maybe you have a wait list. People are telling you how amazing you're doing, but something in your own personal experience feels hollow. For example, I worked with a woman who had built a thriving leadership consulting practice, and she was making great money. She had consistent clients. People saw her as being successful on paper. She was successful. But she told me that while that aspect of her work was the most lucrative part of what she did, it was also the most taxing part. And it was the stuff that she knew that she could do because she's done it for so long, but her real energy was doing more advisory and coaching. So she was succeeding at something that was draining her, while the work that truly lit her up was more sitting on the back burner. And this can also show up if you're still in a corporate job or a traditional career. So I worked with another woman who had been in the humanitarian aid industry for years, and she was kind of bouncing around the world, changing countries every few months. And she told me, I just spent so much of my free time reading about women's health and wellness and wanting to practice yoga, learning about herbalism and the menstrual cycle. And this was my passion project on the side for about a decade. And at some point, I just thought I should pivot and I should really be in this women's healing space instead. So she was successful in her humanitarian work. It was meaningful, it was well paid, it was respected, but she kept envisioning a slower life where she could be in the driver's seat, structuring her work and her schedule around what truly lit her up. So I want you to ask yourself, if you achieved everything on your current business goals list, would you feel truly fulfilled? Or would there still feel like something was missing? Because when your external success doesn't match your internal sense of fulfillment, it is often a sign that you've evolved beyond what you originally set out to create. All right, so let's move on to sign number 2. Sign number 2 is the authenticity gap. The authenticity gap. And this is when you feel like you've started performing a previous version of yourself that no longer fits. So maybe your messaging feels forced. You are teaching things that you've outgrown. You're speaking someone else's words. You find yourself saying things because you think that you should, not because they're necessarily true for you anymore. Those are things that you've always said. And I had a client who was a licensed therapist, and she told me that she felt like she kept running into this idea that she got into therapy for reasons that were rooted in her own trauma. And she said, those themes are being healed and they don't serve me anymore. I don't feel that emotional pull now, or this need to understand and figure things out for other people. So she had built her entire professional identity around being a therapist, which she was being called toward. And now she was being called towards something that was more spiritual and more mystical, teaching people how to heal in nature. And when I asked her what was holding her back, she said, well, I struggle with that because I'm very creative. And one of my favorite things about my business is working on my website. I feel really called towards a more spiritual, more creative path, but I have no clue what that means or looks like logistically. So the gap between her current professional therapist persona and that deeper, more creative, spiritual inner calling was just becoming impossible for her to ignore. And she was afraid to let people see her full self because it just felt so different from her therapist identity that she had really become known for. And this authenticity gap often widens during our midlife transition. So maybe you have built your business around being the productivity guru, and now you're craving more spaciousness. Or you've been the manifestation coach, but now you're being called toward maybe a deeper, more grounded approach. So what can also make this particularly challenging is that your current identity, it feels safe. It's like it's your comfort zone and it's what people know you for. It's how you make money. It's your professional brand. But there's this growing sense that you're living in a box that just is too small. So if you feel like this relates to you, I invite you to ask yourself, what parts of yourself do you feel you can't fully express in your business structure? What parts of yourself do you feel you can't fully express in your current business structure? Because often as we heal and evolve, the persona we created to feel safe or successful in business becomes a costume that just no longer fits who we're becoming. And the question isn't whether you should abandon everything you've built, because you shouldn't, but rather, how can you expand your container to hold more of who you truly are now? So sign number 3 that you have outgrown the business that you've built is that you're feeling an energy drain. And this is when the work that used to light you up now feels quite heavy. And tasks that used to energize you, maybe it's client calls or working with certain kinds of clients or creating content or maybe even that thing that you are so known for, it now feels mechanical, it feels dry, it feels downright draining. And you might find yourself procrastinating on things that used to excite you. You notice that certain types of clients consistently leave you feeling depleted, even when the sessions go well. And I had one client who was a couples therapist, and she said, I loved that work in so many ways. I loved helping people see the ways that they're communicating and how those aren't working and ways to open up new doors. And on the best of days, it's like watching your favorite romantic movie, like these fireworks going off and you can just feel the love. But on the worst days, it's like holding space for devastation and heartbreak. Most often it's pretty bad because people wait so long to get help. And she went on to say, I took a break from seeing couples for the last year because I just couldn't keep doing it. I was just getting so exhausted. And she said that was really the worst place that she could be as a therapist. So what used to be her zone of genius had become a source of dread, and the work itself hadn't changed, but her capacity for it, her soul's calling around it, had shifted. And another client shared how she used to love the strategic planning and consulting work she did for nonprofits, but now she found herself thinking, I just don't want to manage anybody else's team anymore. I don't want to be present on anybody's board anymore. I'm kind of over that. So I want you to ask yourself, what aspects of your work today, in this present time, consistently drain your energy, even when they go well? Because your body is giving you information. When something that used to be enlivening becomes depleting, it is very often a sign that you have outgrown that particular expression of your gifts, or that it's time to evolve how you are using those particular gifts. So sign number 4 is the vision outgrowth. The vision outgrowth. And this happens when you have bigger visions, deeper callings, more expansive ideas about the impact that you want to make, but your current business structure simply can't hold those bigger visions. So maybe you're being called to work with different people or to integrate parts of yourself that you've kept separate or to serve just at a completely different level. But when you try to imagine doing that within what you already have, like within your current business model, it just feels constrained, or even it just feels downright impossible. So I worked with a jewelry designer who said, I have some ideas around developing the business into more of a lifestyle, into a space where I can offer my jewelry service, like certain bespoke collections. And then around that, having a space, curating a space where people can come and gather. So she had this really beautiful vision of not just creating jewelry, but creating an entire experience around beauty and meaning making. And when we explored this deeper, what was really happening was that her soul was calling for a bigger expression of her gifts. And she wanted to integrate her spiritual practice with her creative work to infuse more meaning and ritual into these physical objects of her jewelry that she was creating. And this lifestyle brand was actually her mind's way of trying to make sense of this deeper calling that was moving through her. And so I invite you to ask yourself, what impact are you being called to make that feels too big for your current business structure? And sometimes what feels like scattered ideas or like too many directions is actually your soul trying to show you the next level of your work, and you just need the right container to hold it all. So sign number 5 is that the soul is calling. The soul is calling. And, this is perhaps the most important sign. There is a voice. Maybe it's quiet at first, but it does grow stronger. That is trying to emerge through your work. It might be calling you toward more spiritual integration, as we've heard some examples of already, more creative expression, more depth, more of whatever feels most essential to who you are becoming. Because if you are spiritually inclined, if you consider yourself to be a woman who connects with her soul and does soul work, and you run a business or you want to start a business, that business is an essential part of your soul's work. Your soul is going to need to be woven through to express itself through that outlet. So you might find yourself drawn to work that feels more meaningful, more aligned with your values, more connected to what you feel you are truly here to do. And this calling often feels, let's be honest, it feels both exciting and terrifying because it asks you to step into unknown territory. And, I'm definitely experiencing that with this transition to France. Like, yeah, it's exciting and it's scary. And it's very much guided by my soul to step out of my comfort zone and into the unknown. So one client told me when she was thinking about offering more intensive work with people, like even incorporating some body work into her therapy, she said, I just have these skills that just sit on the shelf. And she said, I take it down every now and then, but mostly it just sits on the shelf. So she was a licensed massage therapist. She was a fertility educator, and she was working primarily as a mental health therapist. And her soul was calling her to integrate all parts of her gifts, the body work, the spiritual practices, the feminine wisdom that she'd been developing, to not keep those aspects of herself on the shelf, as she said. So I had another client say, there's something in me that is really concerned about finance, but my ability to focus while everything else is happening has been really my greatest challenge. And so there's a part of me that does not want to move forward. It's almost like I feel this sense of inertia. So even when a calling is clear, there can be, in IFS we call it some external constraints. And there can also be internal parts that resist stepping into that bigger expression. And all of these need to be addressed with care. So you can ask yourself, what deeper work is trying to emerge through you that you've been afraid to fully claim. So what deeper work is trying to emerge through you that you have been afraid to fully claim? Because this soul calling, it often requires us to integrate parts of ourselves that we have previously kept separate from our work, or to serve in ways that feel vulnerable, that feel like they're exposing, that might set us up to be judged by other people. But it's also more true to who we really are. And really the sign that you are being really true to who you are is that some people are going to judge you. You're not going to be for everyone. And that's not a bad thing, by the way. Okay. So sign number 6 is the strategy resistance. The strategy resistance. And what this looks like is that maybe traditional business advice just starts to feel misaligned or even repulsive, I could say. So maybe there were certain strategies that worked before or that everyone said should work, but they felt forced or even exhausting when you tried to implement them. So maybe it's the constant content creation or the way that you are, quote, supposed to market, or the standard business models that everyone recommends. Like you find yourself resisting your own proven systems because they just no longer feel true to you. And I had a client say, I used to say funnels were not for me. I thought they were too salesy, too cookie cutter, too mainstream online business. They didn't align with the authentic, more sacred business that I wanted to build. And she had built her business without traditional marketing funnels, but then she found herself struggling to really grow in the way that she wanted without needing to, trade hours for dollars with just endless back-to-back 1-hour client sessions. And another woman told me, I'm not on social media and I really don't want to be. It feels like a lot of noise. It's just too much for my system. So I'm trying to figure out how to make a space in the world to do good work and to support myself without social media. So she knew she needed visibility for her work, but the standard advice around building a social media presence just felt completely wrong for her and for her nervous system. And the work that she did was actually around nervous system healing. So that just really felt inauthentic. So maybe the old ways of doing business, like even the ones that used to work for you, they just no longer feel sustainable or authentic. So you can ask yourself, what business strategies are you forcing yourself to do that feel completely misaligned with who you're becoming, or that used to work for you and no longer are? Because when there is a fundamental shift happening in who you are, the old ways of operating often stop working. And that is true in business and in our personal lives. We've all experienced that in our personal lives too, right? The same principles are true professionally. Not because those old ways of operating are wrong, but because they're not right for the new version of you that is emerging. So, just an example in my personal life and moving to France is like I'm really questioning or really moving against just transplanting all of my rhythms from my life in Colorado to my life in France because I'm in a different place. I'm internally and externally. And yes, some of those things will be carried over, but it's really this question of like, well, what is true now? What are the systems? What are the structures? What are the rituals, the rhythms that I want to carry with me into this new season of my life? And sign number 7 is called the plateau effect. The plateau effect. So, despite doing all the right things, maybe growth has stagnated. Maybe your audience engagement feels flat. You're attracting clients who aren't quite the right fit anymore. You don't really feel juiced up working with them. And this isn't about market saturation or economic downturns. Those can certainly be factors. This is also about the disconnect between where you are now and what you are putting out into the world. And if it's not emergent, when there is a misalignment, when there is a out of stepness with where you are and what you're putting out, things do become harder. So one of my clients told me, I used to be able to just send emails out and my programs would sell out. And now sometimes it sells out and sometimes I have to cancel because there just aren't enough people. And she was doing the same things that used to work, but something fundamental had shifted about how her work was landing for people because she was moving into a different season of life. So I worked with someone else who said, I've been in business since 2008, and the time and attention that I'm putting on messaging is more now than ever before. Like things need to be very, very dialed in, very, very high quality. And what used to be effortless, like attracting clients, filling programs, growing revenue, now required so much more energy and strategy. And the plateau often happens because your external business hasn't caught up with your internal evolution. Maybe you're putting out messages and offers that reflect who you used to be. So they're not magnetizing the people who need what you are becoming. It's just things are a little bit outdated. So you can ask yourself, are you working harder than ever, but seeing diminished returns on your efforts? And when you have outgrown your current expression, the universe often creates this gentle pressure by making the old ways less effective. Like it's trying to guide you onto a different path. It's trying to guide you to do something different. So before we go any further, I want to say something that's super important. And that is that if any of these resonate, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, this is really, really natural. This is really human. And this is really important because the very nature of existence and of the universe itself is expansion. We are always growing. We are always evolving. We are always becoming more of who we truly are. And business, especially for those of us who see it as more than just making money, is really a path of personal growth and self-expression, as I talked about a little bit earlier. So when you think about it this way, doesn't it make complete sense that you will have seasons of huge shifts and you will have seasons of smaller shifts, and you are not the same person you were 5 years ago or even 1 year ago. So if that's true, then why would your business stay exactly the same? I think we've been conditioned to believe that once we quote figure out our business, it should just run smoothly forever. That's like expecting to wear the same clothes that you wore back in your 20s, or to have the same friendships in exactly the same way, or to never evolve your spiritual practice or your health practices. And We know everything in nature moves in cycles of growth, of shedding, of dormancy, of rebirth. And your business is part of nature too. Your business is no different. So, what I want to normalize is that developing greater skills and capacity to name these transitions when they are happening and to work with them rather than against them. Instead of seeing these signs as problems to fix, let's see them as information. Let's see them as guidance from your soul about what wants to shift, what wants to evolve, what wants to be born. And, the goal is not to avoid these transitions, just like in your personal life. It's not to avoid change, but it's to become more graceful in navigating them, to trust the process, to see them as sacred rites of passage rather than as, quote, just these business problems that are out there. So if you are recognizing yourself in any of these signs, just take a breath with me and know that you are not broken. Your business isn't failing. You're simply growing. And that growth is asking you to evolve your work to match who you are becoming. So you may be asking, well, all right, now what do I do with this information? Well, as always, and if you've been around here for some time, you know that the first step is simply awareness. Just recognizing and naming what you're experiencing is so powerful. And sometimes we stay stuck because we're trying to fix something we haven't fully acknowledged or understood. If any of these signs resonated with you, I want you to get curious rather than going into fix it mode. And this is not about making dramatic changes overnight. It's about beginning to listen to what your soul is trying to tell you through the vehicle of your business. Here are a few reflection questions to help you tune in even more deeply. The first one is the energy check. When you think about your current business model, what physical sensations arise in your body? Is it expansion or is it contraction? Now for the authenticity gap. What parts of yourself do you feel you can't fully express in your current business structure? And on to the success paradox. Are you succeeding at something that no longer feels like success to you? The vision outgrowth. What bigger impact are you being called to make that your current business can't quite hold? And the sacred discontent. If you could redesign your work to honor who you're becoming rather than who you used to be, what would change? These aren't questions to answer quickly or analytically. They're invitations to drop into a deeper listening with yourself. Maybe journal about them, take them on a walk with you, sit with them in meditation, talk them through with a trusted friend or mentor. And here's something really important. You do not have to navigate a transition like this alone. In fact, I really encourage you not to, because transitions are our times in life when we need community the most. We need community for support, for honest reflection, to challenge us, to celebrate us. And if these questions evoked something in you, if you're feeling that tension between outgrowing old strategies and not yet seeing the new frontier, I want you to know that you also don't have to figure this out by yourself. And this liminal space, this in-between space, where you're no longer who you were, but you're not yet fully who you're becoming. I know, because I have been there more than once. It can feel really disorienting. And it's one of the reasons why so many women get stuck here, or why they try to force themselves back into boxes that no longer fit. But, like I mentioned, we are individually snakes shedding skin, and collectively we are a snake shedding skin. And, these times of deep change are also times of huge opportunity. So all of this change is happening out there. It's happening inside. It's reshaping us from the inside out. And with this, we are all being called to lead in a new way. These times of change are portals for reinvention, for us to really sit and ask, well, what is truly mine to do now? So, what if instead of seeing this transition as a problem to solve or something you need to avoid, you could see it as a sacred passage to navigate? And this is exactly the framework that I'm going to be sharing with you inside a free workshop happening later this month. It is called the Sovereign Shift, how to stop overgiving, start leading, and build a business that truly serves. And the Sovereign Shift is your space to answer that question, what is truly mine to do now? It is your space to remember who you are, to lead from your center, no matter what is happening around you in your personal life, in the collective field. So when the ground shakes, sovereignty steadies, and now is not the time to shrink. Now is the time to shift. So you can save your seat in this free workshop by going to sarahavancetover.com/shift. That's sarahavancetover.com/shift. You can also find that link in the show notes, sarahavancetover.com/shift. So before we close, I want to leave you with a quick recap of these 7 signs that you have outgrown the business that you've built. So sign number 1 is the success paradox. You're hitting your goals, but they're feeling empty or disconnected. Sign number 2, the authenticity gap. You feel like you're performing a version of yourself that no longer fits. Sign number 3, the energy drain. Work that used to energize you now feels heavy or mechanical. Sign number 4, the vision outgrowth. Your current business structure cannot hold the bigger visions that are emerging through you. Sign number 5, the soul's calling. There's a deeper voice trying to emerge through your work. Sign number 6, the strategy resistance. Traditional business advice feels misaligned or exhausting. And sign number 7, the plateau effect. Growth has stagnated despite doing, quote, all the right things. If you recognized yourself in any of these, or especially if you recognized yourself in several of them, trust what you are feeling. Your soul is giving you information. Your body is trying to guide you. The question is not whether or not you should change, but rather how to honor what is trying to emerge while building upon the foundation that you have already created. Remember, this is not about burning everything down. This is about conscious, skillful transformation from within. It's about becoming more fully yourself through your work, not less. And you do not need to figure that out alone. That is exactly why I created this free workshop, The Sovereign Shift, to give you the tools, the framework, the community experience to navigate this transition with more grace, more wisdom, and more support. I want to leave you with this, okay? Transformation is not a burden and it is not a luxury. It is an opportunity and it is a necessity. The world needs who you are becoming, not just who you have already been. If you are feeling the call to evolve your work, to integrate more of who you truly are, to step into a bigger, bolder expression of your gifts, this calling is not random. It is your soul guiding you toward your next level of public service and personal fulfillment. So the question is not whether or not you're ready, because let's be honest, none of us are ever fully ready for the next evolution. The question is, are you willing to listen to what is trying to emerge? Because your business can be a sacred container for your becoming. Your work can be a reflection of your deepest values and your truest self. And this transition that you're in, it's not a detour from your path. It is your path. Trust the process. Trust your inner knowing. Remember, every woman who has ever built something meaningful has walked through this same portal of uncertainty and emergence. You are simply growing, and that growth is divinely guided. So before you go, I ask if this episode has resonated with you to please take a moment to leave a review. And I don't often ask for this. I don't know. I don't want to bother you, but I also know that this is an important thing for me to ask in terms of support, for me to offer support and to receive support back from you within this reciprocal community that we have here. And you know the drill. Reviews are one of the most powerful ways to help other people to find a podcast like this. And when you leave a review, you are helping other women to hear this and to know that this podcast exists. And your words, which could just take a couple of minutes to leave, could be that bridge that connects another woman to exactly what she needs right now. So here's how to leave a review. The best place to do that is on Apple Podcasts. So just open up the podcast app on your phone, and maybe you're already on that now listening to this. And under Herself Podcast, scroll down until you see the ratings and reviews section. Then you tap on write a review, and it takes less than 2 minutes. You can leave a rating, ideally a 5-star rating, and then if that's true for you, and then a review can just be a few words, but that just really makes a world of difference. So thank you in advance for offering your support back to me in this podcast through leaving a review. And also you can share this with another woman who might need to hear it. You can just just share this episode with her in a text or an email or word of mouth, just letting her know maybe something that she might gain by listening. So as always, thank you for being here today. I am looking forward to a new season with you on the podcast now that I'm back from my sabbatical and settling into my new life in France. And until next week, keep listening to your inner wisdom. It always knows the way. Thank you for joining me today. And remember, change doesn't come from listening alone. I invite you to commit to taking one small or large courageous action after today's conversation. One step you can take if you haven't already is to sign up for my Sunday journal. It's a weekly newsletter filled with inspiration and reflections about the intersection between spiritual entrepreneurship and fulfilling your potential to help you become the woman you truly are in every area of your life. You can subscribe at programs-sarahavonstover.com/journal. And if you found this podcast valuable, please share it with the women in your world. Also, I'd be very grateful if you'd leave a review. It helps others find resources like this, and I'd love to hear what's coming alive for you after listening today. Above all, keep going, and never forget the unique offerings you and your true self bring to the world. Until next time, I'm sending you my heartfelt support.